Once upon a time in a certain community, there lived two very good friends, Sarah and Sandra. These two pairs were very inseparable, almost so that people often thought they were sisters. They had grown up together, went to the same primary school and even the same university. Their bond was unbreakable. A year later, after their graduation, Sarah and Sandra returned back to the village after being unable to find jobs in the city. Sandra especially was so upset and complained of their situation. "I'm tired, Sarah. We went through school and then the university. All that suffering only to end up in this village?" She complained bitterly every time. Sarah would always reassure her that they just needed to be patient as God's time would come. But Sandra couldn't wait any longer. All of a sudden one day, Sandra had disappeared from the village. No one knew her whereabouts, not even Sarah. Many months later, Sarah was sweeping the house that day when Sandra suddenly showed up. But she wasn't the same Sandra that Sarah knew. Not only was she heavily pregnant, but she looked very pale. Her once bright complexion had darkened. "Sandra? Where have you been? What happened to you?" Sarah asked, taking her inside. "I'm sorry," Sandra whispered softly amidst tears. Sarah gave her space to rest, promising they would talk later, but the next day, in the early hours of the morning, Sandra screamed from her sleep. Sarah quickly jolted awake. Sandra was going into labor already. Sarah quickly ran all the way to the midwife's house. "Who's disturbing my peace at this time of the day?" the old lady asked, opening the door. "Please, my friend is in labor. She needs your help." The old lady sighed. She went inside, took her necessary tools and went with her. But by the time they got there, Sandra had already given birth not only to one but two babies. Sandra laid pale and weak as she looked at her friend. "Sarah, I'm dying. I know it. I feel it." Sarah started crying. "No, no, no, don't say that." But Rose held her hand. "Listen, please take care of them like you did with me." Sandra coughed blood. "Please, you are the only one I trust. Promise me, please." Sarah nodded quickly. "Okay, I promise." Sandra closed her eyes, smiled, and gave up the ghost. Sarah looked at the two babies, a boy and a girl, tears full in her eyes. The elderly woman helped clean the baby before leaving to seek help. A stubborn fly always follows the corpse to the grave. Now look how Sandra ended up. Sandra's father spat, staring at her lifeless body. "Sir, I don't think this is the right time. She made a mistake, yes. But these are your grandchildren," Sarah said, cradling one of the babies in her arms. "God forbid. We already disowned her when she showed up pregnant. There's no way we'll accept those bastards you call grandchildren. The only reason we came here is to bury her so that people wouldn't talk. She has disgraced us enough. If you want to adopt them, then go ahead and do so." Sandra's mother spat, following the group of men who had carried her daughter's corpse. Sarah stood there still in shock, but as her eyes went to the baby, she became worried. Would her fiancé also reject the babies, just like everyone else? She hopes not. "We are going to take care of the children. I'll support you in any way I can," Sarah's fiancé, Luke, said to her that night when he returned from his trip. Sarah was so happy. Finally, the children had been accepted. She named the babies Travis and Tracy. Weeks turned to months. Things turned out for the worst. One day, Luke called her for a talk. "I'm not sure I can do this, Sarah. People are talking. They are calling me a weak man. Please return the children or hand them to an orphanage." Sarah's blood ran cold. "I can't do that. They are like my own kids. Besides, why care about what people say? We are doing the right thing. I make the decisions in this house, Sarah." Luke raised his voice, startling Tracy, who started crying. Sarah instantly carried her into her arms, calming her softly. "For an orphan, you barely can feed yourself, yet you insist on keeping two children that are not yours. It's either you sent those kids away, or you leave my house this instant." Sarah's eyes widened. "But where do you want me to go at this time of the day?" Luke went inside the small room and returned with a small bag of clothes, throwing it outside. "I sent you to school, yet you couldn't choose me. Fend for yourself," he simply replied and slammed the door on her face. Sarah picked the little bag from the floor with Tracy in her hands and Travis straddled on her back. She walked away from the compound. She didn't have anywhere to go. No one in the village would allow her to spend the night at their houses. Her only option was to move to the city. While there, she could ask some of Sandra's friends, the biological father of the twins. By the time Sarah arrived in the city, it was already dark and almost raining. She spotted an empty abandoned stall just beside the street and went there. The place looked old, but it was all she had for the night. Sarah doubled 2 wrappers and laid them on the floor. She gently placed Tracy first on it, then untied Travis and laid him beside his sister. She leaned back and watched the 2 siblings sleep. At least for the night, she didn't have to bother about their food. A bitter smile spread across her lips. It felt just like yesterday, both she and Sandra sat in evening times, like now just chilling. Just then her phone pinged, a message from Sharon, one of Sandra's friends she had contacted asking her to come over tomorrow. The next morning, Tracy's hungry screams woke both Sarah and Travis up. "Come on now, Tracy, don't worry, you'll have your breakfast soon enough." Sarah gathered her in her arms. Little Tracy stayed silent as if understanding her words. Strapping Kelvin on her back, she kept their bags by the side and went out in search of food. The market was just opposite the shelter. Sarah barely knew how to feed the twins. She only had a small coin to buy a small bowl of pap. "Thank you." Sarah smiled at the waitress after the bowl of pap was placed on her table. She fed Tracy first, then later on Travis. The other customers stared at her, some with admiration, others with indifference. Sarah left for Sharon's house, a massive mansion in the heart of the city. "It's such a pity Sandra ended up that way," Sharon said, staring at the twins. "But you know, this is a blessing in disguise for you, Sarah. With these kids, you don't have to be poor again." Sarah frowned. "What do you mean?" she asked. Sharon smiled. "Look, I know someone interested in buying kids. Luckily for you, you've got 2 of them. That's over millions of dollars, girl." Sarah smiled bitterly, standing up slowly. "I guess I'm at the wrong place for help then." She began walking out of the house. "Don't be stupid, Sarah. Those kids are already ruining your life." Sharon's voice came after her. Sarah ignored her. By noon, Sarah returned to the market. Travis had resumed crying again, out of hunger and the heat of the scorching sun. She looked at the local phone shop just by the corner, then at her phone and slowly walked to it. "Excuse me, can you please buy my phone? I need the money for my kids." Sarah called the attention of the young man. He took the phone and inspected it without interest. "It's way too cheap, but for the sake of your kids, I'll give you something for it," he replied, removing a small amount of money, then handing it to her. "Thank you," she replied gratefully. She used some of the money to buy milk, mineral water, and some diapers before returning to the stall. After cleaning up, feeding the kids and putting them to bed, she looked at the remaining balance. 2,000 naira. At least she could start up something small at the moment before seeking a better solution. The next morning, Sarah got up very early. After cleaning the twin, she made milk with mineral water, strapped Travis on her and Tracy on her chest, then set off to the market. She bought a half basket of tomatoes, put some on a tray, and began hawking inside the market, calling on buyers on all ends, giving breaks sometimes when the sun was too harsh, or when she needed to feed the babies before returning back to hawk. Luckily enough, the twins kind of understood her situation and hardly cried. For almost 3 months, the woman who hawked tomatoes with 2 babies strapped on her back and chest became a popular sight in the market. Market women talked non-stop whenever she walked. To them, she was just another loose girl in the city of Lagos. This is a lesson to her mates. Next time, she'll not open her legs just to any man. Sarah heard one fruit seller saying to her friend one morning at the market, but like always, her head remained high and focused. At least with her small business, she had managed to buy a small stove and few clothes for the twins. One afternoon, as Sarah hawked her tomatoes under the sun, she noticed a young man scolding an elderly man. Many people stood by, watching in amusement. "Give me my money, you old man. Next time, do not hire services you can pay." The taxi driver barked angrily, holding the man by the chest. "I'm sorry, son. Please, I wasn't aware my money was stolen while inside the bus. But I'll call my son to pay you," the old man said pleadingly. The taxi driver scoffed, pushing the man so hard that he fell on the floor. Sarah quickly rushed to him and held the man up. "Hey, this man is old enough to be your father. Give him some respect." She spat angrily. "No one called you here, lady." He snared. "How much does he owe you?" 500 naira, the man replied sternly. Sarah reached for her wrapper, untied it, and gave him the last note she had. The taxi driver glared at her, then at the old man. He smashed the tray of tomatoes on the floor and stumbled away. Sarah quickly rushed towards it. Tears burned at the back of her eyes. "I'm sorry about your tomatoes," the elderly man said, helping her to pick the remaining undestroyed ones. It's fine, I'll look for a way. But what about you? Do you live around here? She asked. The old man nodded. He could barely walk properly after the fall. Sarah offered to take him home. Papa Joe lived in a small, crampy old apartment not far from the market. Thank you, young lady, you're too kind, Papa Joe said smilingly. I only did the right thing, Sarah softly replied. Just then, both Travis and Tracy led a loud scream. I have to go now, sir. Take care of yourself, sir, Sarah said, turning to leave. I assume they must be hungry. Please sit, let me offer you something for you and the babies. Sarah hesitated. She took a seat on the worn-out sofa. By the time Sarah finished feeding them mashed potato with tomato sauce, it was already raining outside. Papa Joe noticed how worried Sarah was as she kept glancing outside. Is there anything wrong, my dear? He asked. Sarah smiled softly. My shelter. It must be flooding with water right now. Papa Joe smiled. Well, it's a good thing you are here then. The kids could have fallen sick. Peace nodded in agreement. With all months she spent in the shelter exposed to cold and mosquitoes, it was surprising that none of the kids fell sick. They only had a few fever, but nothing serious. You are free to come live with me, Sarah. I get lonely sometimes. You and the kids would be of good company. Sarah's mouth opened in shock. But your son, is it fine with him? She asked. Don't worry about him. I'm as good as an old man with no child, Papa Joe replied casually. Sarah saw the pain behind the smile. Thank you, Papa Joe. Sarah smiled widely. Papa Joe smiled, waving it off. There's nothing there to thank me for. Few weeks later, Sarah had fully settled into Papa Joe's apartment. Papa Joe became the twins' grandfather and his apartment, their home. He assisted her with a little capital and his old stall at the market, a place where she began her puff-puff business. Time went by quickly, and many years later, Tracy and Travis had grown up into a beautiful girl and a handsome boy. They loved Sarah so much. Sarah did everything she could to make sure they felt comfortable. With her little business, she sent them to a local school. They were obedient, helped Sarah at the small space in the market. Travis sometimes took odd jobs around to help the family. Besides that, Travis and Tracy possessed a beautiful gift that their neighbors loved about them. They were excellent singers. Every day while at Sarah's place, they would sing to attract customers and ended up with spare change from people. People couldn't stop praising Sarah for her upbringing and how lucky she was to have them. Sarah would only smile, and each time she stared at the twins, her desire to keep her promise to Sandra remained firm. One evening, Sarah and the twins were almost leaving the house for the eatery when suddenly a black expensive car stopped in front of Papa Joe's apartment and a woman stepped out. Mum, are we expecting any visitors? Tracy asked, unsure. Sarah shrugged with a brow. None that I know of. Good day, everyone. Are you Miss Sarah, mother of Tracy and Travis? The lady asked. Yes, how may we help you? Sarah asked gently. I'm Belinda. I'm a music talent manager based in the US. A few weeks ago, someone posted a video of your kids on the internet. I see great talent in them, and I wish to help them achieve their dreams. Belinda showed the video to them. Sarah and the twins blinked, looking at each other in confusion. It was really Tracy and Travis. They had over 5 million views with uncountable likes on Instagram. Ah! Tracy jumped, hugging her brother and Sarah. This is my card. You can call me or try to verify about me by any means. I hope for positive response from you all. It's a big opportunity, Belinda said, then took off with the car. Sarah stood frozen, staring still at the card. Travis and Tracy were still hugging each other in excitement. Later that night, Sarah sat inside the living room, unable to sleep. Belinda's offer kept replaying in her ears. Still thinking about the kids? Papa Joe asked softly, taking a seat beside her. I know this is their dream, and I'm happy to see it coming through. But I'm worried. They are going to be far away, where I can't watch over them. They are still too young, Papa. Papa Joe held her hands with a small smile. You worry too much. They might be young, but those kids know what it means to be responsible. Besides, refusing this opportunity would be similar to you holding their future back. I'm sure you wouldn't want that. Sarah bit her lip. I know, Papa. I'm just not used to being away from them. She whispered, tears falling from her cheeks. Tracy and Travis, who had been peeping from the door, came out and hugged her, eyes full with tears. If it makes you sad, we won't go, Mom. Travis said. Sarah smiled softly, more tears falling down. No, I won't stop you from going after your dreams. Just promise to take care of yourselves. Yes, Mom. They both replied. Sarah hugged them again, hot tears flowing down her cheeks. A week later, Sarah used up all of her savings to prepare for their upkeep. Belinda returned a few days, picked Tracy and Travis up for the airport. Sarah stayed back, her eyes watering as she stared the car driving further with each passing minute. Months passed. She struggled to adapt with the kids, even though she spoke to them always on phone. It didn't help to fill the gap in her chest. Then by the 6th month, she was unable to reach them. She called several times, but their lines were unreachable. Sarah, you should give up on those kids. They are never coming back for you. It's normal for those types of kids. A female neighbor said to her one day at her eatery. Brows furrowed. What do you mean by those types of kids? She asked. The woman laughed. We already know those kids are not biologically yours. My friend's son saw them on TV in America. They looked well-dressed, had a good complexion, and their way of talking has changed too. If they are already earning dollars, why haven't they bothered to send you any money? She asked. Sarah ignored her and focused on her work. Please mind your own business. The woman laughed again. I will. I only hope you stop being proud and realize just how foolish you've been for taking care of kids whom everyone rejected. Sarah turned deaf to the lady's words, but as the months went by, she became more than worried. Not a single day went by that she didn't try reaching them. Sometimes she tried Belinda's contact, but none went through. Worst of all, Papa Joe, who used to calm her, had fallen critically ill and was hospitalized. The morning Sarah went to give him food in the hospital, Papa Joe had already passed away, and his corpse had been taken away by his son. She tried to ask for any information about his funeral location, but no one could provide her with it. One morning, Sarah slept off in the living room after crying all night when she heard a knock on the door. Her eyes opened instantly and she rushed to the door as if expecting to see her children at the door, but when she saw who it was, the wide smile fell slightly. I wasn't aware my father had company all this while. A man in his 40s walked inside, glancing at Sarah in a way that made her uncomfortable. It was then she recognized him as George, Papa Joe's son. Welcome, sir. Please take a sit. Sarah gestured to the sofa nervously. Can I offer you something? Just water will do, Papa Joe's son replied. Sarah nodded and went to the kitchen to get a glass of water just as she filled the water. The man joined her in the kitchen, posing by the doorway as he watched her. Turning to head out of the kitchen, the glass of water almost fell from her hands, seeing him there. George gave her a soft smile, then with his hands tucked. You know, my main aim of coming here today was to prepare this house and the little shelter at the market for sale, since my dear father is no more. What? Sarah's eyes widened in horror. But sir, you can't do that, please. I live here. This is my home and livelihood. I know that, but looking at you right now, I'm having a change of mind. There might be a way out for you, he said with a twisted smile, taking a few steps closer to her. Anything, sir. I can't leave here. This is my family's home. George tried to tug a strand of her hair, but Sarah stepped back. She didn't like the way he looked at her. You're a very beautiful lady, Sarah. Make use of that beauty. I want a taste of you. I'm not interested, sir. I'm willing to rent the house and the shelter somehow. Just please give me a bit of time, she replied firmly. George's eyes darkened. How pathetic can you be? You preferred opening your legs for an old cargo like my father, yet you refused to sleep with me, he asked. Sarah's hands tightened around the glass. Your father and I never had such a relationship, sir, Sarah clarified firmly. George laughed hysterically. Don't give me that nonsense. My father was no good Samaritan. Maybe if you had cared about him a little, you wouldn't be saying that, she countered. George clenched his fist angrily, stepping away from the kitchen. You've made your decision then. Get your belongings and leave this house. He barked angrily. No, please. My children live here and I don't have anywhere to go. Sarah went on her knees, holding his legs, tears full in her eyes. Not my problem. Get out right now before I throw you in jail. Sir, please, I beg you in God's name. She continued pleading, but he didn't bat an eye. Sarah slowly stood up on her feet. She went into the room and picked a few of her belongings, and that of her children, looked around with tears in her eyes before walking out of the house. Inside a local bar, 3 women spotted Sarah with the bags. Is that not Sarah? One of them called the attention of the others, pointing a hand towards Sarah. "Indeed," the other two said in amusement. "Sarah, did you finally get kicked out of the house?" one of her neighbors asked mockingly. "Well, serves you right. You always claim to be an excellent mother and how perfect your children are. Now where are they to help you? You can't blind Papa Joe with what's between your legs anymore. Which old man are you going to seduce next?" The rest of the women laughed. More tears flowed from Sarah's eyes as she ignored and walked past them. Meanwhile, back at Papa Joe's house, just as Sarah left, someone came to look for her. "She's my wife and this is my home. You can ask my neighbors. I own this house and she lives here," George explained to the delivery man, eyeing the package he had come with. The delivery man looked at him doubtfully. George laughed. "What are you scared of? You think I'll lie? You may as well wait for her to return from the market if you do not believe me." "There's no need for that, sir," he said, handing George the box. Immediately he left. George bolted the door firmly, quickly opening the box. Inside were two envelopes, one containing a letter which he didn't bother opening, and the other. George's eyes widened greedily. The other envelope was thick with thousands of dollars. Well, well, looks like I got something from Sarah after all." He smirked. Sarah had been walking for hours aimlessly. All the people she thought were her friends, none of them accepted to take her in for a few days. Finally, she came to a stop at an old wooden church building. Inside, there were only a few people having prayers. Sarah stepped inside unnoticed. Holding a picture frame, she knelt beside her seat and closed her eyes. Even without speaking any words, tears began falling down her cheeks. "God, please protect my children. Do not let any harm come to them," she whispered. She didn't care for herself. She was prepared to take all that life threw at her, but the pain of not being able to know how her children are fearing keeps stabbing against her chest. "Ma, please, we need to close the church now." A young lady tapped her on the shoulder. Sarah jolted awake. She had been sleeping for hours, and it was already very dark. "Sorry about that," Sarah replied. She picked up her bags and walked slowly towards the door. The young girl noticed she looked hesitant to leave, but didn't bother to ask. As the wooden door closed firmly behind her, Sarah looked around. There was no one in sight. She took a seat by the veranda. Leaning beside the wall, she closed her eyes and dozed off, holding the frame tightly on her chest. For over a month, the church veranda became Sarah's new home. Very early in the morning, before the church door opened, she would leave before anyone saw her and wander about looking for a job or food to eat, but found none. Some days she was lucky to be among the line of beggars who stood in front of the church to receive food. For the unlucky days, she slept hungry. Either way, she always made sure not a single day went by without going inside the church for prayers. One particular day that Sarah went in for prayers, the same young girl came to wake her up, but something strange happened. "Ma'am?" she called, tapping her for the third time, but Sarah didn't wake up. Her head was bowed as if in sleep, but Sarah wasn't. Panic surged through her. "Sir, I think we have a situation here." The lady quickly alerted one of her colleagues who rushed to her. "What happened?" "I have no idea," she replied honestly. "I remember seeing her come in earlier. She looked sick." Together with some other church workers, Sarah was rushed to the hospital. Hours later, the doctor confirmed Sarah was suffering from hypothermia due to long exposure to cold and had to receive treatment immediately before it became worse. No one had an idea who she was or if she had any relative they could call. Worst of all, she was still in a coma. 3 days later, Joan, the church girl who had found Sarah, felt restless with Sarah's helpless state. The church tried to contribute, but the money was barely enough to start proper treatment. The doctors, too, had refused to attend to her as per the hospital's policy. She came up with an idea to expose Sarah's condition to the media so they could reach out to the public or any of her relatives. Days passed with no positive results, only pitiful comments and get-well wishes. Meanwhile, a few days later, 3 SUVs drove inside the dusty street, stopping in front of Papa Joe's apartment. The neighbors, wondering what was happening, all gathered, but to everyone's shock, it was Tracy and Travis who stepped out of the expensive cars, all in expensive suites, looking like billionaires. "Why is there no one at home?" Tracy asked, seeing the door firmly locked. One of the women who had mocked Sarah at the bar held Tracy's hands with a warm, sad smile. "My child, many things have happened since you people left. Papa Joe died, and his son kicked your mum out of the house." "What?" Travis exclaimed in shock. "We tried to accommodate her, but she refused. She wanted to go in search of you two." Another lady lied. Tracy burst into tears. "Where is my mom?" "Oh God." Travis held his sister close, his own tears falling freely. "I think you guys should see this." A young man from the crowd handed his phone to Travis. The phone almost slipped from his hands. It was the post Joan had made seeking help for Sarah. Travis and Tracy quickly sped to the hospital. "Mom!" Tracy cried, rushing towards the unconscious Sarah on the bed. "I'm so sorry, Mom. We should have come back sooner." Tracy cried more, hugging her mother tightly. "Her treatment is extremely expensive. She's running out of time. We need to—" "Just do your damn job, doctor." Travis, barely unable to control his temper, shouted at the elderly man. "How heartless can you people be? If anything happens to my mum, this hospital and all your staff will go down for it," he vowed with bloodshed eyes. The doctor bowed his, nodded and began the treatment on Sarah. "If anything happens to Mum, I won't be able to forgive myself, Travis." Tracy mumbled, her eyes red and swollen as she held Sarah's hands. The treatment was successful, but Sarah was still unconscious due to excessive stress. "Nothing bad will happen to her. I only hope we aren't too late, though," he replied firmly. As if on cue, Sarah's hand moved, startling Tracy. "Mom?" Travis called. Sarah opened her eyes slowly. The moment they settled on her children, a warm smile spread across her lips, accompanied by a tear. The two twins hugged her tightly, afraid to let her go. "We are sorry," they whispered amidst tears. Sarah, too, couldn't stop her tears, and despite how weak she felt, her hands held her kids firmly. "I thank God for bringing you back." Over the next week, Sarah recovered quickly, shocking even her doctors and nurses. She conversed non-stop with her children. They filled her in on all the details and why their connection had ceased over the months. Apparently, their manager seized their phones and ran away with the revenue they made from their songs and shows. Until last month, when the police were able to track him down. When Tracy mentioned the package they had sent, Sarah had no clue about it, but concluded without a doubt that George had surely taken it. Sarah, too, filled them in on Papa Joe's death, and some events, leaving aside the most painful ones. A day after Sarah was discharged from the hospital, Travis drove both his mother and the sister to their home, a place that Sarah couldn't believe. "Children, what are we doing here?" she asked as they both let her inside a big mansion. The type that she had only seen in movies: white painting, a waterfall at the corner, and a fleet of cars parked on the driveway. "This is our home, Mom," Tracy replied smilingly. But this is too much," Sarah said, still in shock. The interior of the house itself was heaven on earth. White marble floors, intricate wall designs, and very expensive chairs that one would even be afraid to sit on. "This is nothing compared to what we intend to spoil you with, Mom." "Just wait here," Travis said, smiling as he rushed upstairs. Sarah's brows furrowed. "What are you two up to?" she asked Tracy suspiciously. "Wait and see, Mom." Shortly after, Kelvin returned with a file and handed it to his mother. Sarah slowly opened it, only for her eyes to water. Her hands trembled as she held the document. "We are giving you ownership of this house, Mom, and 3 other mansions in other cities which are still under construction. The cars, they all belong to you too." Sarah burst into more tears. "What did I do to deserve you both?" "This is too much," she whispered. Travis and Tracy Boye held her hands. "Thank you for being a good mother and a friend, Mom." They both spoke in unison. Sarah had never been happier with the following days of her life. She and her kids paid a visit to Papa Joe's grave. They had bought the apartment from George, who was shamelessly courageous to receive the money after his theft. Their former neighbors could barely recognize Sarah the day she stepped out of her car to pack the rest of their belongings. Most of them could only stare in shame and whisper in silence, but none dared to approach her. As Tracy and Travis paid their final respects to Papa Joe, Sarah looked up in the sky, the evening sun settling. "I wish you were here to see the angels you brought on earth, Sarah." She smiled softly, a tear falling down her face, but she quickly wiped it. "I hope you're happy wherever you are. I will always look after them for you," she promised again. Just then, her phone ringing interrupted her. It was a strange number. Though skeptical, she picked it up. "How have you been, Sarah?" Sarah paused in her steps. She recognized the voice even though many years had passed. "We need to talk about my grandchildren." Sarah swallowed the lump in her throat. Sandra's mother. Why was she asking after Travis and Tracy? Sarah walked a few distance away, then answered, "What do you want? I remember like it happened yesterday, what your husband said about them. Didn't you call them bastards? Or are they suddenly your grandchildren now because God has blessed them and you intend to benefit from it too?" Sarah asked angrily, unable to control her emotions. Sandra's mother's face hardened. "Don't you speak to me like that, Sarah. Those kids are no way related to you. Give them back to us or I'll come after you. I'll be waiting for you to come after me then. But note this well. Over my dead body will I allow any of you to come closer to them." She spat and quickly turned off the call before blocking the number. She had always feared this day would come, especially now that Travis and Tracy were now rich and famous. "Mom? Was that our grandmother?" Sarah startled, heart pounding hard against her chest as she turned to see Tracy and Travis standing behind her. Sarah didn't know where to begin. The look on their faces told her they wanted the truth, and frankly, she wanted to set herself free too. They deserved to know their biological mother. She moved closer and held their hands softly. "Let's get home first. I'll tell you everything." "There's no need to hide the truth, Mom. We know you're not our biological mother," Travis said softly. Sarah's eyes opened in shock, "and we are okay with it. It doesn't matter who it was that gave birth to us. You are the one who kept us alive when no one wanted to." "But how did you know?" she asked, confused. "We heard you and Papa Joe talking about it one day at home," Travis responded. Guilt flashed all over her face. "I'm so sorry for keeping it away from you, more so how you found out about it. I understand if you get mad at me. I also understand if it's your desire to know your true relatives. You and Papa Joe are our only relatives, Mom. When everyone else rejected us, you stood by us through thick and thin. We are not interested in any other person claiming to be our blood," Tracy added sternly. Sarah looked at Travis, who equally had a similar look. "I love you so much," she whispered, pulling the two to a tight embrace, which they returned equally warmly. "We love you too, Mom." They both replied. "You're the best, most wonderful mom ever," Tracy said happily. Sarah laughed, hugging them yet again with her eyes shut. Finally, a journey filled with so many challenges turned out so perfect at the end. The end. This story teaches us that a family is not only formed through blood, and sometimes the people who may tend to lift you up might not be related to you. Not all friendships are a waste, some are also worth keeping. Now tell me, what lessons did you take from this story? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to tell us where you are watching from. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest update. This is Lenie again. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.